Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Up Your Brave live stream panel series. We are going strong, and today I'm super excited to dive into the topic of emotions and mindset. And this is such a great topic, specifically now, I think that we're kind of settling into level 2. Whether you're watching this with us live or you're watching the replay, emotions and mindset, it's something that is important all the time, and I'm sure my beautiful guests will agree. I'm really excited to see what tips that you in the audience also have to share with us today. So let's bring in our fabulous guests. Here they are. Hey, so we've got Jessie Graham. Hey, Jessie.
Good.
We've got Tanya Carr-Smith, who's down in Wellington. They had a big quake the other day. Hey, Tanya.
Yeah.
We've got Rob Robertson. How are you, Rob?
Yeah, really good. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. So as you guys know, whether you've watched the show before, what I do is I'll give a little bit of backstory on each of my guests and give them a chance to share a couple of their golden tips with us. If you're watching, let us know where you're watching from. And here's something I would love to start with too, and I'll get you guys to think about it as well. Whenever I coach my clients or do, whenever I get together, and I do this with my kids as well, this is one of my mindset tips, is I often get them to start with celebrations and 1 to 5s. So before we even go into our coaching session, I get them to tell me one win that they've had in their life and how they're going on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being crappy and 5 being awesome. Because then we know where we're at, right? And that's one of my little tips that I want to start with today. So if you're watching us live or on the replay, go ahead and share a win. Let us know a celebration that you've had in your life lately. You guys can share one when it comes to your turn as well. But that's a little tip that I do, and it's kind of celebrations and 1 to 5. What it does, it gets your mindset in a positive frame, but you also know where the person's at. So this comes from my background in multisport, where we were so exhausted we could barely talk, and we would literally be like, hey, I'm a 2 right now. Like we couldn't even barely talk. We had no energy because it was the 5-day multi-sport race. So anyway, that's my little top tip that I want to kick off with. So just have a think about that. And as you guys listen, maybe share with us your celebration or how you're going on a scale of 1 to 5. All right, let's take it to Jessie. We've got Jessie, very first guest. So honored to have you here, Jessie. So Jessie's in Gisborne. Look at her beautiful background that she's got behind her. She's on one of the amazing women on my doTERRA oil team. I'm sure she'll talk a little bit about that today. And Jessie, you are just a woman with so much insight. I know you've got an interesting background, and I'm excited. I want to see you I think you're going to be a powerful speaker. I'm excited to have you here as a guest today. Can you elaborate? I know you're a mother of 3, I think. If you can elaborate on your background, share with us a little bit of your backstory, and then take us to tip number 1.
Cool. Thank you. Oh, well, first of all, thanks, Natalie, for having us here today. And hello to my fellow speaker guests. Nice to meet you guys. And for all of you guys who are watching, I'm Jessie Graham. I'm born and raised in Gisborne. I'm the youngest of 8, which means I have a huge whānau. On one side, I've got 60 plus first cousins, and on the other side, I've got 100 plus first cousins. So it makes a really cool upbringing. I was brought up in an amazing, amazing home, and there was so much love, consistency, everything that every child could ever need. I actually had it. And then I guess as you begin to become an adult and you've got to grow up and you've got to face stuff, then you begin to realize just how, I guess, perfectly imperfect your life actually is. And so fast forward to when I was in my mid-30s, I'm now over 40. I know, it's cool, eh? Mid-30s, and I faced a very, very deep, dark depression. So my backstory is that I found myself in a place that was so dark, not a suicidal kind of dark, but a hopelessness nonetheless. So what I then turned to was kind of default mechanisms, and they weren't good ones. They weren't healthy choices. So that showed me that I didn't have the reserves or the reservoir of emotional fortitude that I needed to actually get me through that process. So in highlighting all of that and exposing, I guess, my frailty, I then had a choice of what I was going to do. And beautifully, one of my best friends, Bex Teriu, she introduced me to doTERRA essential oils. And from that moment, I actually had a little companion by my side. It was like having a little secret weapon in your purse or in your handbag or in your pocket. And from that moment, I realized that the power of aroma and the ability of the chemistry of the essential oils to actually influence your emotional state was just phenomenal and mind-blowing. So that's my backstory. And one of the tips that I can offer today is exactly the role of essential oils and the aroma to actually anchor you. So in the world of essential oils, they call it aromatic anchoring. And for me, if I'm going through something that is feeling like I'm uncertain, I'm unsure, might get a little anxiety, might get some kind of palpitations or hot sweats, then I know that I can reach for a particular oil to soothe me, calm me. And then what that does is it creates a neurological pathway in your brain so that it associates that smell with the actual new emotional behavior that you're going to then exhibit. So for me, my oil is Douglas fir.
Oh, yes.
So when you smell Douglas fir, you just feel like some light of energy has just come up through your feet and out your top. And then from there, you're able to go, oh my gosh, first of all, thank you, Douglas fir. And then secondly, thank you, doTERRA, for putting this in my hands. And then you're able to then create some new pathways of how you're going to relate to that particular emotion that you're suffering from or going through.
And thank you, Queenstown, because that's where the Douglas fir comes from.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jessie. And I see that Ponamu is commenting and she's saying she absolutely agrees. And thank you for explaining it as well, because I know a lot of people have heard of essential oils, but they sometimes think they're like candles that just smell nice. And it's like, no. So much more. That's awesome. Thank you so much. All right, let's go to Tanya. So Tanya and I met when we were both speakers at a women's event in Wellington, possibly around 6 months ago or something like that.
Yeah.
I loved your presentation. She actually was doing yoga and speaking. So it was a very dynamic presentation. It was so powerful. And I knew that I wanted to have her somehow work with her in some way. So I'm super happy to have you as a guest today, Tanya.
Thank you.
I'm going to read a little bit from your bio, 1 second, and share with everybody a little bit more about what you do. Here we go. So Tanya Carr-Smith, nice hyphenated name, lovely, is a coach, guide, and yoga teacher supporting and empowering women to create and experience more freedom and flow in their lives. She guides you intuitively and strategically to gain the insights you need to embody your truth and build a deeper connection to your mind, body, and soul. She's a believer in the beautiful collision of science and spirituality, as well as the important part that nature plays in curating the connection that we have with ourselves and who we are becoming. She's also a mama to 3 young kids. That's the trend. We've all got 3. Tertiary education and an absolute wannabe surfer. Ooh, interesting. Who would call the beach or the bush her happy place. Welcome, Tanya.
Oh, thank you so much. Funny story first about the hyphenated name. So
Yeah.
That's actually my husband's. It's his name is Carr-Smith, and it came from his very forward-focused great-grandmother who decided she wanted to be Carr-Smith. She didn't want to be just her husband's name, which was Smith. So there you go. I come from a background in tertiary education, but one of the big things for me is that I also come from that spot of not doing things in order. So there's this expectation, I think, a lot around the place of should. You should go to university, you should then do your OE, then you should get married. And, you know, there's an order of how they say we should do things. And I was sort of completely backwards with that. I didn't do uni. I did Polytech. I didn't get married before I had my kids. We only just bought our first house last year. So we did everything a little bit backwards. And I love that.
Yeah,
and
I want to do this. Go you.
I'm like, you know, you just, I think it sort of brings me to my first tip, which is the should that really gets our emotions. I think when our emotions are really heightened, I feel like what we do is we come back to the should. Oh, I should be going out to this place, or I should be spending more time with my children, or whatever that is. I should be doing more work, when you actually need to bring yourself back down a little bit and consider a little bit more, what does feel good for me right now? And we end up in this expectation, what a coach in the States, she calls it the expectation hangover, which is from Christine Hassler. And it's this thought that we have all these expectations on ourselves, on others, and then they don't happen, and we get all down on ourselves. And so then we get into the should. So our emotions are completely all over the place. So that's my first tip, is just to rather than sitting in how you should be feeling, sit in how you actually feel for yourself and take note of that rather than paying attention to what others are doing around you.
Love it, love it, love it. Everyone knows that I'm obsessed with the not living in the should zone. So that is perfect. And Ponamu says that she's also totally backwards. So yay.
Yay!
In your own way. That's interesting about your husband's surname. So my husband and I, so I'm the Welsh and he's the Cutler. And my family was only girls, all girls. And you know me, I'm very into like gender equality and things like that. So I was like, I'm not going to let the Welsh name die. So I said, I want to hyphenate. And he was like, yeah, me too. Like, we want to be the same. So he also is hyphenated, which everyone was pretty impressed about that. So there you go. Yeah, very interesting. So if you guys are watching us live or watching the replay, we would love your tips as well around emotions and mindset. What are you doing maybe on a daily basis, or maybe whenever you feel like you need a boost? What is it that you turn to that helps you to really be positive and have a clear mind? I think getting out of the should zone, as you mentioned, or using the essential oils, these are things we can do all the time. All right, Rob, let's go to you. I'm going to read your little backstory. So Rob, I explained to the girls before you joined us, I think that you are the chair of the Professional Speakers Association. Is that right?
On the board and interim manager at the moment.
Oh, so. Interim manager. Lovely. Doing a lovely job. So I've known Rob. Actually, I think I met you way back in the day when I was first starting my Go-To Girl business. We went to a live event together, Sally Anderson event, actually, and I met you there. And we've kept crossing paths as the years go on. So it's super exciting to have you here. Can't wait to hear what you've got to share with us today. Robert C. Robertson is an entrepreneur, speaker, and productivity expert that helps people move from frantic to flow, the tools for greater time freedom, self-esteem, and inner trust. With his leading edge approach, Rob has developed the Emotional Fitness Toolkit, the Time Productivity Engine, and the Team Trust Engine. These tools combine Rob's passion for technology with powerful emotional fitness strategies. The result is better decisions, reduced stress, and achieving more in less time. Rob's own results across sport, life, and business have been greatly enhanced by using these tools, with 2019 a breakthrough year in sports performance and mental toughness. I don't even know what sport you do. Keep us posted. As founder and CEO of Unboxed Performance, Rob leads a team who all work remotely. Well, there you go. You're ahead of the times. Awesome to have you on the show, Rob.
Thank you. Wow. So backstory, is that where we go? So I have emotional fitness is my biggest passion. It just happens that the business is around technology and emotional fitness. So the backstory is, as a kid, I made it to the under 12 rep soccer team and had a whole lot of self-doubt. I realized then the whole emotional journey, and I don't always go right back to the start, but let's go back to as a 7-year-old. I grew up on a farm, and due to a farm worker, there was some sexual abuse. So from that point on, then there's a lot of self-doubt, and it came up as an 18-year-old, represented mid-Canterbury in tennis, but again, massive self-doubt, all sorts of interesting emotions that came through, knowing nothing about emotions as this little naive kid from the farm. And then, cut a long story short, go university, went to Lincoln, and first year, massive shock of what life is like and all these people and anxiety and depression, and learnt positive thinking. And so for 10 years, I thought positive thinking was the answer because I had in the head and felt pretty good and was reasonably successful career-wise and in sport. And then it was rugby. And then fast forward to, after the 10 years, I was doing a retreat in the Blue Mountains in Australia, and I discovered massive anger and emotions that I didn't even know was there, because I was turned everything into a positive in the head, and I didn't even know about emotions other than positive ones, because I couldn't even share anything but other than positive emotions, because I was just in this facade of being Mr. Positive and zero vulnerability, and because I was this facade in the head. So the last 20 odd years has been learning everything I could around emotions and emotional fitness. So that's been my journey. That's what that's my biggest passion, is emotional fitness, and helping, because my core driver is freedom, inner freedom. And that's the inner freedom that I now have with different mental toughness that I have as a result in sport, and tennis is the sport more recently. shot up the national rankings. And yeah, that's pretty much me. So last bit is inner freedom is internal, but the outer freedom is the technology. That's where I work with businesses around technology to have their technology set up in the right way so that they have the freedom of their business to enjoy the inner freedom. So that is my story.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the transparency there. Obviously, you know, that sharing that with us, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that, where they had an incident in their youth that they, you know, tucked away or whatever, and that later came out. I know you've done some stuff, and it was around the start of lockdown. You launched a website around men's anger and some work you're doing there. Can you share that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I went to when I first discovered emotions, I was in the head, Mr. Positive, and then I had this massive amounts of anger. I didn't know. So I went to a men's anger group living in Sydney there. Most people were there because, well, police sent them. There's serious anger issues. So learning about anger was a real journey. And so I launched that when we started lockdown here. And because I was so busy, I created the website and did a post on Facebook, and no one actually registered. So I didn't actually get off the ground. I'm a big believer in flow. Just follow the instincts and what is going right. Just listen inside, and what flows you follow. So didn't actually launch it, but I was all prepared. I've got this website all about it. And one day,
let's launch it right now. Let's do it.
It will flow. What was that?
Well, you know what? Maybe at the end when I do the how can we get in touch, if you want to mention it, we'll put it in the show notes, and let's just see what flows. Because men's anger, I think, is a massive topic. Well, anger in general, but specifically men's anger. Thank you so much for sharing that. Jesse and Tanya, before we go around again, do you guys want to comment on anything that either each other has said today?
Oh no, I think I'm just enjoying listening to the conversation. It's great. Yeah.
We've got someone sharing with us when I asked the question, what is it that you do to take care of your mindset and emotions? When they comment from a group, we can't see your name, so maybe go ahead and comment with your name. But she or he says, prioritizing time in nature. Mostly I exercise outdoors, but sometimes just being outside and listening to the sounds of nature is great for emotional regulation. So if you guys missed it, last week we did mindfulness and gratitude, and that was amazing. We had a beautiful panel. We also talked about going outside in nature and having bare feet and literally grounding yourself on the ground. So I'll put the link to that, because a lot of the episodes I do, they kind of piggyback on each other so nicely.
Just one thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Tanya was talking about shoulds. So I believe shoulds are head stuff. We can live our life on shoulds and head and what we're told by outer stuff, whether it be culture, religion, or family, or whoever, and that's the shoulds in the head. But it's about listening inside and trusting our instincts and just knowing the difference between the shoulds and our true drivers.
So true.
I think one of the concepts I really only heard about in the last few years is the concept of having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And I know that before that, earlier in my business career, I'd heard people talk about having an abundance mindset versus a lack mindset. But even before that, you know, back in the day when I wrote my parenting book, I had never heard of those terms. I didn't know what that was. And now looking back, I definitely had a lack mindset. So I feel like one of my tips, or at least my insights, is just to make sure everyone has heard of those concepts. The cool thing is, which I'm so excited about, our kids are learning about growth mindset and lack and fixed mindset in school right now. So I'm just like, that is so amazing, because I feel like the future of emotions and mindset and the impact on mental health and suicide rates here in New Zealand, which are very atrocious, I feel like it comes back to the kids, right? And how they acknowledge emotions, and they don't have to like put them down like, she'll be right, mate, soldier on. It's like, no, it's actually acknowledge how you feel. If you do feel angry, how can we process that emotion? So I feel like being able to acknowledge the fixed and try to move towards having a growth mindset in kids or anybody is a really huge step in terms of your happiness and your mental health. And I'll give a really quick example. I was reading Brene Brown's book. I can't remember which one it was. I can't remember the title. And she gave this example, I think it was her book, about fixed versus growth mindset. And so the example was, so you're driving home from somewhere, you get a flat tire, you know, and then you call your friend about it and your friend just blows you off. Okay. So the fixed mindset person would be like, oh my gosh, of course I get a flat tire. Like, you know, of course it's another bad thing happening to me. They call their friend blows them off and they think, what a jerk. How do they, you know, that's really rude. They didn't care about me. Okay. The growth mindset person would be like, oh my gosh, I got a flat tire. That's so lucky I didn't have an accident. They get home, they call their friend, and their friend blows them off, and they're thinking, I wonder if my friend's okay. Right? Exact same scenario, totally different mind talk and perception about what's going on. And so I thought that example was really, really good because it makes you go, oh yeah, that is interesting. How would I react? And how can I actually tweak? Because I always say you are the CEO of your own life. You are the CEO of your own mind and your own pie, if you listen to my story that I shared last week. But I feel like we can move ourselves towards having more of a growth mindset, even though sometimes it's easier or more natural to go into that lack mindset. So that would be my tip or insight for today. I'd love to hear people's comments on that. Somebody else is saying submersion in cold water is like exercise for the emotions.
Cold water
I heard
therapy.
about the cold water bath, but I thought it was about fitness and muscles. I didn't know it was about emotions.
Don't know about that, but it's certainly a lot of sports people use it, and it's really good for muscles. And there's this research that suggests for males it increases testosterone and all sorts of things. I had to go at doing it for 10 days and it froze. It was literally.
All right, let's go to round two. So Jesse, take us to your tip or your insight number 2 that you want to share.
Cool, thank you. So I really love what Tanya and Rob and you, Nat, have shared, but I just want to pick up on stuff that Rob talked about. And for me, it's my tip number 2 is around critical reflection. And you've actually got to go back in order to go forward. So, because what we're feeling in this current situation that we're in is informed by a whole lot of other stuff. And a lot of it is around conditioning. So we're born into a family, we're born into a society, a community, a time, an era. And all of those moving parts actually influence and inform how we're going to perceive information, how we're going to process it, and then how that's going to manifest as a behavior. So sometimes when you have the behavior, you're too busy focusing on what that is, but that's just a manifestation of a deeper, a root cause. And for me, the critical reflection tool is about going back and having the brave, you got to have a brave disposition to go back. And this is for people who genuinely want to be free. Like you say, Rob, I'm all about freedom. And for me, my emotional freedom, actually, it propels me into future plans and creativity that I never knew was available to me before. Why? Because I've allowed myself to go through that deep healing process so that I can access that freedom, so that I can then begin to create freedom lifestyle, and in that, hoping to inspire others to do the same. So when it comes to healing that core root cause of those negative emotions, it takes courage. You need to be brave. And so quite often, some people don't actually engage that process for a whole lot of different reasons, but mostly because it's too hard. It's too ugly. The impact of exposing that behavior on other relationships is, people manage and they weigh up whether it's worth it or not, mainly for themselves because they got to protect themselves. But if you have a constitution and a disposition that wants freedom, then for me, the tool is critical reflection. And it's not about going back to do the I should have, I could have, shoulda, woulda story, but it's more about, man, what happened there? And if you have an out-of-body experience and you look back on that 7-year-old boy or this 9-year-old girl, you can then see the impact. And then from there, your emotional response and then your mind response and then your body response actually creates a new life of its own. So then you face reality as an adult and you look back and you go, oh my God, I've created this whole ecosystem of Jess that isn't actually Jess. It's a product of a trauma. And stop that. Who the hell wants to keep living their life traumatized? And then through that critical reflection process, you get to begin to talk to that little girl. And you go to her, you know what? It's okay. It wasn't your fault. The adults in your life should have known better. Blah-de-rah-de-rah. Hey, and then you move forward. And then you begin to look at situations in your life because you're critically reflecting. And that critical part is around being honest and taking some honest looks at yourself. It's not about blaming the people that actually were the perpetrators or the people in your world who didn't protect you or whatever. It's actually about now I'm in a position where now that I know, I can then begin to change the course of the future. So for me, critical reflection might look like you writing a letter to yourself, you writing a letter to somebody, and not actually sending it, but just getting your thoughts and your heart and your emotions into words, whether it's a recorded journal or an actual journal. However it is that you feel like you can express it, then begin to let it out. Because in that process, you're freeing space up for the good and the new stuff to come in.
Nice.
So good. Yes, totally
Beautiful.
agree. You guys want to comment on that?
Oh,
I think
totally.
you said it all, Jess. That was great. Yeah.
I'm going to build on that a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Valerie Klein says your hidden mind is a fantastic tool to do this reflection without rebutting yourself. Yes, I agree. I think it is that balance, isn't it? So we're not doing talk therapy where you're rehashing over and over what happened. This is critical reflection, the term that Jesse's using, which, you're being curious and you're having a growth mindset about looking back and then looking at how that has played out for you. And then I think making an empowered choice about how you want to show up and who you want to be, and having done the work, letting go or forgiven, or not blaming other people, because or else it just holds you back from living the life you want to live. Tanya, would you like to share your next tip or insight?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I think is really important for us to know is that we're cyclical beings and that we run in a cycle. So we can't always be up. We run in seasons just the same as the garden. If you're trying to, you're never going to have a harvest. You have to sow the seed to get the harvest. So this one is probably more for the woman watching, but what I think is really amazing to do is to track not only your menstrual cycle, but actually the emotions that are attached to those points in the cycle. And the way you can look at that is starting, when are there times of the month that you're fantastic at planning? You're really good at bringing through ideas. When are times in the month that you're really good at executing things and socializing? And then when are other times you need rest and you actually need to recoup a little bit? Maybe, as Jess said, using some of those essential oils that actually make you feel really good at that time so that you can rest and reflect. And when we start to get a really nice pattern, we can actually start to work our day and our weeks alongside that. And so for me, that's one thing that's really powerful for people, is actually knowing that being cyclical means that we can track those emotions. So it's not just about the PMS, which we always hear about, but what about the times when emotionally you're feeling so amazing and so you want to be out socializing? Why not capitalize on that? Have those times when you're actually out having meetings or preparing projects, things like that. Capitalize on when that is happening, and then know where you can start to finish projects when you're actually in that frame of, right, I can get this done, I'm going to finish it, you can run with it. And then those reflective times where you can sit back and go, right, I need to look at that self-reflection and have a look at how my month was, have a look at how my energy was, have a look at what emotions have come up for me during the month. Yeah.
Amazing. I've never even thought about looking at it like that. And you're right. People always focus on the symptom side of everything. And I feel like by doing that, people will probably judge themselves less because they're not thinking, oh, I'm so unproductive right now. Well, it's like, well, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can link it. There is a lot of research to say you can link that to the moon cycles. You can take it down whichever tangent you want. If that's not your kind of thing, then just look at the emotions and the energy side. Because there is a cyclical nature of what we do. And there's just times that you'll find you're so much more energetic. All of that, it's how we can work.
And it can apply to males because
absolutely,
it's about actually getting more conscious about your emotions, and by tracking them and writing down patterns, then you gain more awareness. So great.
Something for everyone to do. We've got Dominique says that I'm watching from Kitty, and Rob is a friend of mine. I'm missing plenty. I'm missing plenty of what you say and sick kids at home. Hey, so let's hear what else Rob has to say.
Well, following on from what Tanya said, that our emotions are in the cycles. It's emotional fitness is all about thinking of our emotions as a muscle. If we don't use a muscle and we have limited range of use of that muscle, and emotions are the same. If we just are okay being positive or can't handle negative emotions, then that's limited emotional fitness. So it's the first thing is that to accept and understand all range of emotions. And it is cyclical. If we're really honest, they're like, I've been feeling nervous during this call, and that's why I've been. It's not because of coronavirus that I'm muting and coughing, by the way. It's just because, when I'm nervous, I sometimes cough. So it's about being honest with who we are, and then having techniques. And that's what emotional fitness is about, having techniques to handle the lower and integrate our emotions. So we own our emotions and build our resilience by being able to handle the negative emotions. And so there's a series of techniques that can come to, if we have time to dig into that.
Yeah, well, give us one technique. We're open to it.
Well, emotion unblocking is whenever you feel a negative emotion, it's actually nicknamed de-shitterization, but I have to be careful when using that term, because some people, one lady looked at me as if...
I can say it. I get it.
Let's go with unblocking, emotion unblocking. So it's whenever you feel a negative emotion, then you express it. You do it in a private area where there's no one around, or particularly if you're a male, because the whole thing about showing emotions is, and drop into the emotion and then ask where it's coming from. So you go down a layer into the emotion and ask where it's coming from, and keep going down and into, it actually goes into the unconscious. So if you keep doing that, ask where it's coming from, you get layers and layers of emotions come out. And the way it works is, if you think of it's like an iceberg, in our psyche, we have all our baggage from whatever. We're told, well, we're not good enough as a kid, or we have an incident or whatever. So that's our emotional blocks that are hidden away in our unconscious. So in our unconscious, an iceberg comes up, we feel the negativity above the surface, and maybe we express that. But here's the key part is, if you express the top of the iceberg and then drop down and melt layers by asking where it's coming from and just let out. You don't need to intellectualize it. All our baggage wants to come out, but it's a form of self-healing you do by yourself, and you drop into the emotion and release layers and just ask where it's coming from, and you melt the whole iceberg. And then effectively, if you get to the bottom of it, it might be 10 minutes. And for me, there's been massive anger and all sorts of stuff that I've cleared, again, in private. So, and then you actually debaggagize and let go of your stuff, which means you change completely your self-esteem. For me, it's that self-doubt and all the low self-esteem that I used to have is settled. I'm pretty comfortable who I am now, and the whole mental toughness and all these things in sports. So that's the outcome if we just debaggagize. And there's a 8-page download, which I think you can share in the show notes if people want to download the deeper instructions. There's one more step to clear your energy, and that's to say anything's not the highest level of light. Come on, you leave my body immediately. You say that first, because often we're picking up energy from people and it's not our energy, and we just offload that with a simple command. I mean, there's a bit more to it than that, but yeah, that's the technique that's been huge for me. There is others in the toolkit, but that's the biggest one for me.
Thank you for sharing. We'll definitely include that link, because I think it's a lot of people, we know intellectually, but we don't know the how of how to do these things. And so either, like Jesse mentioned about doing the work, we reach out to someone who can help us do the work, or we find some techniques to use. I actually, instead of giving another tip, I wanted to put something to you guys. Maybe just being really transparent myself. I posted this yesterday, and you've mentioned about positivity a few times. I posted this yesterday, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it was, I'll read it to you. It says, "I've been told I'm like a man because I don't often show my emotions. I think I do. It's just that 87% of the time they're genuinely happy and positive. And I choose to pick my battles. So in that sense, I'm very predictable. But trust me, when I have something to say, you'll hear about it, LOL. I don't think it's a gender thing exactly, although men are stereotypically less transparent with their emotions. As women, are we allowed to be more emotional, or maybe expected to be? Discuss." So I put that up, 26 comments, but like, this is on my personal page. I also put it on my public page. So I'm just interested in your guys' expertise and your reflection on this, because I think maybe I don't know if I'm living a lie to myself, but I think I am super positive. I am very enthusiastic. That is who I am, like genuinely. It's who I've always been. I don't know if it's who I feel like I need to show up as, but I think part of it is because I've had such a positive life experience. I've definitely had challenges, like the earthquake and my son losing his hair and my back injuries, but I've never been told I'm shit. Like, I literally have never been told negative things. So I don't have that. So I don't know. Do you feel like I'm just living in my own bubble of positivity, or am I really 87% of the time positive? I'm super open to your thoughts. I'm also open to everyone else who's watching, around the gender piece, around emotions. I think
Yeah.
it's interesting to be told I'm like a man. Like, I didn't get offended. I'm like, yeah, I've heard that before. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd love to share.
Yeah.
So firstly, the whole male and female energy, there's a male sort of energy, and there's various books that are really interesting about the difference. And so as a male who's very aware emotionally, it doesn't mean that I go around and express a lot of sadness or have a female energy in public. What I've grown is I've actually even been more alpha male by being in tune. In the boys recently, we had a boys outing, and I just know who I am, and I'm actually more confident and strong and assertive. So I'm actually more alpha male as a result, but I'm also able to really drop into vulnerability and be honest and be true. And so there's definitely a difference in the I forget, there's a book that explains it, but it doesn't mean, that'd be the shortest answer.
I think when it comes to gender roles and gender equality, it depends on the construct that society is generally buying into. Because when you look inside of Indigenous bodies of knowledge, the gender role construct is actually based on the survival and the well-being of the whole community. So at any given time, if a man is going to step into a place of nurturing because that's his role at that particular time, then it's not that he's being feminine. He's just contributing to his job for the general success of that whānau or hapu or iwi or people group. So then when you also couple the fact that we have been westernized, and then a lot of that church influence around roles and stuff like that. So for myself, when I look inside of myself in the Māori worldview, I have woman and female and male dimensions that live and exist together inside of me. And last year, classic example is I spent a lot of time being very strategic. So I was very much in here. And the year before that, I was very much drawing down creative energy. So then when I manifested it last year by way of strategy, by the end of the year, I was absolutely stuffed. And what I realized is that I had exhausted that aspect of self. I had spent less time in my feminine dimension, which meant that there was a lack of flow. Now, for women, we know that flow it actually is who we are. But that lack of flow, I could attribute to the fact that I was spending more time on my masculinity because I was forward thinking, I was planning. It doesn't mean that women can't do that, but it's a domain. It's I guess it's like a fiber optic cable inside of us, and we can tap in and out anytime we like. So for me, the construct that the Western societies actually give us around gender roles, that needs deconstructing. And then we, in our own awesome selves, we can redefine that for however we want to. And that's the freedom that we get as human beings. So yeah, I just want to share that around cultural bias.
And I think I would imagine we were all, that have the feminine and the masculine as well.
Yeah, and having said that, I think I totally agree. It's about dropping the rules, because I show a lot of emotion in private, because that's how I let go of old stuff, by releasing anger, anxiety and things today. But that's how I grow, just to tune into it. But I think it's less and less, or for me, it's less and less about gender roles. It's just about being yourself and listening inside and trusting yourself. And when you're just in the moment and just do whatever happens, who cares about gender roles? It's just you're in the moment and you do what you need to do. And you don't care to the same degree. I'm very aware of everybody around me, but I don't actually care what people think to the same degree, because just have grown to be present and okay in my own skin. So that's my take.
Nice. Tanya,
I would only add in. Yeah, I was just going to add in, like, there's, and I'm sorry if you can hear my dog barking. That's why I've been putting myself on mute. There's always some yin in the yang, and there's always some yang in the yin. So when you always have that little piece, and I think at different times, then when you are strategic, as you said, Jess, you know, when you're doing strategic, then yeah, you might be a bit more masculine. When you're letting it flow, you might be more in the feminine. I think there's it's not necessarily even a balance. It's just about who you are. It's what your story is and where you are taking that story. And for you, your story is one of positivity, and you feel good in what you're shining out into the world, and that's amazing. And the only one that really gets to take charge of that and decide whether that is your story is you.
Nice.
Yeah,
And
thank you. Interesting.
just one quick comment. I'm seeming like I'm dominating here, but flow is a big factor for me. I've found in business.
Flow actually today, yeah.
Yeah, there's magical flow and synchronicity of events happening in business with people arriving that want a job, or people just contact me that want to have an internship, and all these things are happening when you're in the moment and trusting your instincts and just getting out of the head. And it, particularly in this time of change at the moment, it's about letting go of expectations and just not having to know, and just, well, sure, we have plans and things, but just not needing to know and letting go of control and just being.
It's just letting yourself know that I think there's a bigger story at play. There's, you know, it's not just you. And everyone sees things in different ways. I heard a great analogy the other day, which is that we're all on the same sea, but we're in different boats. And I think that is just so good, because it's sort of what we have been doing over the past few weeks is we're all seeing things differently, but we're still riding that same sea, riding that same wave.
All right, we're going to do our final round, you guys, which is the What's Cool About You round. And also, where can people find you? Because I'm sure that some of the listeners are going to want to find you wherever you might be, Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook. So if we're going to kick off with Jessie, what's cool about you? What's coming up, if there's anything coming up, and where can we find you?
Cool, thank you. What's cool about me? There are a few things I love about myself. And 2 years ago, I couldn't say that. But I love the fact that I am the real deal. And if I'm going to share anything that I've shared today, I've actually lived it, walked it, and breathed it. So I love that I'm open. And so what that makes me is pliable, teachable. I'm fluid. I'm like water. But at the same time, I also know what is a definite yes for me and what's a definite no. I love that I have multiple personalities, but it's not a disorder. It is that at any given time, a certain personality will come out and demonstrate themselves, and then the other personality is going, yay, way to go. Before, they used to fight, they used to hate each other, they used to pull each other down. So the thing I love about myself is I've come to that place in my life where all of my personalities, they hold hands and they skip together. At any one time, one goes forward and the other ones are clapping their hands.
Love it.
And it's not a disorder. Awesome. You know, society teaches us that that's not cool. You've got to be one particular thing and maybe three others. But actually, when you find harmony in yourself, then all of your little personalities and your friends inside your head, they find harmony as well. And then they know their place, they know their identity, and then they help to take you to where you got to go. I love that about myself.
That is so good.
So you can see my name, it's Jessie Graham without an I. So if you want to find me, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. And I do have a little support group that I, inform and teach about the oils, and doTERRA essential oils. And I guess what I've got coming up for me is I've actually developed some wānanga. And wānanga is the Māori term which means to set aside a space and time to go and deliberate, to extrapolate, for the purpose of seeing what needs to be done to get to the next level. So those wānanga are going to be around emotions and mindset, because that's what I love. And because I understand the role of having a healthy emotional and mindset lifestyle, then I'm an advocate for that as well. So that's coming up for me.
Brilliant. Amazing. And everybody, I will be, we do take the notes, we take the show notes and we put it together in a blog. So we will give you the links. So I'll make sure that we include those. And Tanya, let's hear what's cool about you. What's coming up? Where can we find you?
After talking to my children to help me as well, because I had an idea, but they were quite funny with what they came up with. But one thing that I think makes me cool is that I deal with my fears head on. and often to extremes. So I have a huge fear of heights. So a few years ago, I decided that I would go parasailing. I'm not sure why. It was just we were on the boat and they were offering it, so I decided to go parasailing. And in February, I went on the Rotorua swing, the treetop walk. So I was petrified the entire time until I got to about the last swing bridge, and then I was okay. And I think for me that just shows that I can actually hit things head on and go, right, if I can do this, then I can do the next thing. And I think often it can be way smaller than that. You don't need to go and walk on swing bridges. I was as scared as I was walking the Abel Tasman a couple of years ago and actually had a panic attack at one of the swing bridges. Like I couldn't walk across the swing bridge. So, I've come a long way since then. So I think it just sort of shows that, find evidence as well of those times when you are fearful of when you've actually got past a fear, which really helps me. Coming up, I have a yoga and wellbeing retreat in the Marlborough Sounds.
Ooh.
It's a women's retreat that I run at Lochmara Lodge, which is a beautiful eco resort down there. It's for 4 days and 3 nights, and we do yoga daily, we do meditation. I have 2 small workshops that I also offer, which are to do with being able to bring to life what you are wanting to have in your life, so more of the vision, looking forward focus, and sort of having a look at that, and how you can actually put things into place rather than just saying, hey, I want this, but actually not having a plan of how you're going to do it. And people can find me at Tanya Carr-Smith, no-hyphen.com. Also on Instagram as Tanya Carr-Smith.
Yay, that's great. I'll be putting the links up as well straight away so you guys can follow each other. You guys can follow each other as well on Instagram. Hey, for people watching, let us know what's cool about you. So in this round, it's really just a great way to get to know people a little better. So maybe you can share with us a hidden talent that you have, or something cool that you've seen, or something that you've done. That's what this round is about. All right, Rob, let's go to you.
All right. Something interesting about me is I love to dance, and I have been running this dance group. It was during the bubble and the lockdown, and it was just a Zoom event. And I found that, well, should I go to the story?
Yeah, do it.
I run the title once of New Zealand's Next Top Drag Queen, which was interesting because my mum in Methven was so proud telling everybody about this and didn't realise the connotations, even though I'm not that way inclined. But I have this amazing blonde wig. So from that, and so when I run this dance group, I find that I love to dance on Zoom, but when I put the wig on, I just go uncontrollably into a different persona as a dance. And it's just so amazing to have this long blonde hair dancing. And that's something a bit weird about me. And maybe there's one last interesting thing that I don't really talk about, but I can, when I see people's face, often can read what's happened in their life. And I've actually done channeling from the people that passed over, my auntie, and channeled to my cousin. Don't do it often, but there's some skills there that I love doing, which are just some gifts or things that I love doing.
Why are you giving us 2 cool things?
Oh, I'm a bit greedy. I've dominated a bit here, haven't I?
He's like, and here's another one. No, that's cool. So what's coming up for you, and where can we find you?
You can find me on robertcrobertson.com.
What's the C? Colin? Chad?
Sorry?
Cliff? What's the C? Robert C. Robertson.
Oh, Craig.
Craig. Okay.
So yeah, robertcrobertson.com, right. Or if I offer free strategy sessions to business owners, and so you can go and book into my calendar. That's at meetrcr.com. So if you go to meetrcr.com and book into the calendar, there's also a link to, there's a Facebook group there for around technology. So you can join a free Facebook group there. And then the last thing, what's happening for me is the podcast that's been launched. So that is on remote work. So it's around the mindset and technology for remote work. So that is also, if you go to meetrcr.com, down the bottom, there's a link to the Facebook group, which will get you into that podcast if you're interested. So thank you for bearing with all my hogging of the waves here.
No, that's all good. And what I'll do is, this is how I do it straight after the call, you guys. By the way, stay on the call when I say goodbye to everyone. Just stay on the call with me. And I get you guys to give me the links straight away in our little chat. So for everyone watching, I will give you those links really soon. And then eventually I'll get the show notes done up by my beautiful friend, Joe, who's doing those for me. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining me today. It's been amazing to have you here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. It's been
Thank
fun.
you.
So good to see you guys. So what I'll do is I'll now just share with everybody else what's coming up on the show and how they can get in touch. And we'll say thank you so much to our beautiful guests. So I'll pop you guys off to the side. Thank you so much. Stay there though. Don't leave. Thanks you guys for watching. I can't wait to come back. I always like to come back and read the comments and see what other insights you have. Please, if you didn't already, go ahead and share a celebration or a win in your life, because it's always good to have that positive reminder. And then also anything that you've got from today. I'd love to hear what really resonated with you. What is maybe one thing that you're going to action in your life based on some of the things that came up today? It might be that you're going to go and do the work. You're going to go and revisit something that happened, not rehash it, but you're going to move through it. Or maybe it's that you're going to start doing some yoga in your daily routine, or maybe it's that you're going to, do one of Rob's activities. So let us know what you're going to do to make sure that your emotions and mindset are taken care of. I love that we talked about the gender piece. I really love talking about gender and roles and perceptions and misperceptions. So I also want to hear what you guys thought of that. So coming up on the show, you guys, I'm changing it. I'm not going to do two a week now. And now that we're in L2, it's Tuesdays only. I've got wealth mindset coming up as a topic. I've got confidence and sharing your story coming up as a topic, dare to dream, and much, much more. So I can't wait to bring you more amazing guests. Thank you so much for joining me. If anyone is a business owner and they want to get out there, they want to be more visible, learn how to speak online, on stage, in the media, get in touch with me. I have an amazing Amplify program and membership. I would love to help you. You can check out all the previous videos on nataliecutlerwelsh.com/video series, and we'll see you guys next time. Until then, remember to up your brave, say what you want, and make it happen. See you. See you guys.
Bye.